I'm putting together a team, people with special abilities. You see, I believe enemies are coming.
Stop right there. I'm in.
You are?
Yeah, I need friends.
The DC Extended Universe. Is it a thing or is it not a thing anymore? Following the disappointing reaction to Justice League, the DCEU looked like a thing of the past, but thanks to this,
Permission to come aboard.
and this,
Superpowers, dude, I don't even know how to pee in this thing.
and the big time success of her,
Promise me you will protect it with your life.
plus some very vocal fans on the internet, Warner Brothers might be taking another swing at the DCEU.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Wait, what about this?
I'm just trying to make people laugh.
Or this? Are these movies also a part of the DCEU? You can't have two Jokers at the same time, can you? This is where it's gonna get tricky. So how does Warner Brothers navigate these choppy waters, and what might the DC Extended Universe look like from here on out? What's up guys, I'm Chris Killian and let's talk about the new DC Extended Universe. First, let's go back all the way to 2013. DC was very much riding a wave of momentum fresh off the critically acclaimed Dark Knight trilogy, which some could argue completely reinvented comic book films, making them a genre to be respected. Sorry Martin Scorsese.
You talking to me?
Yet all the while, Marvel had slowly done something never before seen in cinema by combining the might of all their second-tier characters and combining them into one massive crossover film called, you know what it is, The Avengers.
That's what we call ourselves, sort of like a team.
Meanwhile, DC decided to cool their jets on Batman and push reset on their other marquee hero by the name of Superman, who hadn't been seen since 2006 in Superman Returns. So you know how it goes. They cast Henry Cavill as Superman and hired Zack Snyder to direct, and we got Man of Steel, which wasn't critically acclaimed and didn't pull $1 billion at the box office like Warner Brothers had hoped, but by no means did it bomb either. It was salvageable, but changes needed to be made. So it was back to the drawing board, and Warner Brothers then decided they wanted to do like Marvel did, which was have their own massive crossover film. That's not a knock, it's just the way it is. Disney found a very successful formula for combining all of their Marvel heroes into one giant crossover blockbuster, and why wouldn't DC want to replicate that? The problem, as we all know, in a nutshell, they rushed it.
That feels like an oversimplification.
Feeling overeager perhaps, Warner Brothers immediately cast Ben Affleck as Batman and Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman and featured brief cameos from every one of the Justice League members for Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, giving the audience almost no time to get to know any of these characters.
This is a bad idea.
Of course, hindsight's always 20/20, and Warner Brothers should have pumped the brakes immediately, giving each of these characters their own film before rushing this together. Look at the track record for the solo films so far. Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Shazam have each been a massive success. Had Ben Affleck got his own Batman film as well, ditto for Flash and possibly Cyborg, and then we got Batman vs. Superman leading to Justice League, this might have all played out very differently, but the damage was done.
We might not have thought this through.
This led to Warner Brothers freaking out, trying to course correct, and by doing so, they forced David Ayer to change Suicide Squad to give it a more lighthearted Guardians of the Galaxy kind of feel, and even replaced Zack Snyder on Justice League, which ultimately led to a poor reception of both films.
It's hideous.
And the breakdown of the DCEU. As we all know, Ben Affleck abandoned his role as director at first for the solo Batman film before leaving the role altogether. Henry Cavill also left as Superman, and Warner Brothers forged ahead with a solo Joker film with Joaquin Phoenix rather than bringing Jared Leto back. And this is where things start to get split. DC couldn't completely abandon ship because, like I mentioned earlier, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Shazam were each massively successful. Rumors had it that a solo Flash movie would adapt Flashpoint and attempt to undo the events of Justice League, similar to how we saw X-Men Days of Future Past wipe X-Men 3 from continuity. A lot of good that did them.
It'll be like the last 50 years never happened.
Yet the Flash movie would rotate directors in and out and continuously be pushed back. All the while, a groundswell of fans online started hashtagging release the Snyder Cut, feeling like the director hadn't got a chance to finish his vision.
That's rude.
So after years of that, it's been finally announced that Warner Brothers will spend upwards of $30 million to finish and release Zack Snyder's Justice League on HBO Max, which is said to clock in at a nearly massive 4 hours.
I feel stung by that.
The positive response for the Snyder Cut being released have reportedly even turned into Warner Brothers considering releasing a director's cut for Suicide Squad that would unearth all of Jared Leto's unused Joker footage. Following that announcement, we also learned that Henry Cavill is in final negotiations with the studio to return as Superman, albeit in a cameo/side character kind of role in the same way that Marvel utilizes the Hulk.
Well, I knew you didn't bring me back because you like me.
With these revelations, I think it's safe to say that the DC Extended Universe is back on track, especially if Zack Snyder's Justice League is as successful as they're anticipating. Never mind the fact if it's actually well received. Ditto for a director's cut of Suicide Squad if they announce that's in the works too. Now with HBO Max clearly all in on the DCEU as well, they've announced plans for a Justice League Dark series and a Green Lantern Corps series, and I wouldn't be surprised if those shows also get connected to the DCEU in order to compete with what Disney Plus is offering with their MCU canon shows.
Who are you people?
All in all, I would say the new DCEU looks very much like the old DCEU, with the only current anomaly being Batman.
Oh, shit.
Oh, Batman, what are we gonna do with you? Joker was obviously a massive success, but out of the gate was recognized as its own thing, even taking place in the 1980s with no plans for a sequel. But $1 billion and some Academy Awards might make them rethink that sequel talk. Likewise, director Matt Reeves is said to have a very distinct version of Batman in mind for his trilogy, so I would expect The Batman to live in its own universe as well, similar to how Batman in the Dark Knight trilogy has been treated. So does that mean Batman as a character is not a part of this new DCEU? Not necessarily.
Well, here I am.
Now that all of these bridges are being rebuilt, there's a very real chance we could see Ben Affleck return as Batman in a similar role to Henry Cavill, being used predominantly as a side character to appear in other characters' movies. If Ben Affleck is unwilling to return as Batman, Warner Brothers still has some options. First, they can always recast. It's weird to go from Michael Keaton to Val Kilmer to George Clooney, but it's been done. After Justice League, they could also just ignore Batman in the same way the CW shows do. He sort of exists, but he's just always off doing his own thing and never shows up.
Well, you know us billionaire vigilantes. We do love our toys.
If adapting Flashpoint is still in the plans, we could also still see a different version of Batman appear out of the multiverse, which would be a great way to get around the Ben Affleck situation. One final option, they could always kill him off.
Yeah. Oh, something is definitely bleeding.
That one's bold, I admit. Even Christopher Nolan couldn't stick to that one. So what did we learn? Everything in the pipelines for DC is likely to remain a part of the DCEU with the exception of the Batman and any solo villain origin stories DC might try to tell in the future, a la Joker. Either way, the DC Extended Universe is shaping up in an exciting way once again, and hopefully Warner Brothers have learned from past sins. Are you excited about the new DCEU? Tell me in the comments or find me on Twitter at Chris Killian or on Instagram at CK Comedy and tell me there. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like the video and subscribe to our channel so you can catch all of our latest videos.